and I had turned down $1 million grant to pay off the club. And now
I think we just have to. I started recording so we could just capture this because Dalton's reaction to "I just paid off the strip club" was fascinating.
Yeah,
you got okay. So let's just start
let's
there.
let's leave with that. Yeah,
Let's leave with
you
that.
already spoke it out there, so I want to know what this is about.
Why were you paying off a strip club?
Yeah.
I just wasn't getting enough baby powder and glitter in my life. No, that. So the reason I purchased a strip club, to be honest with you, is I run a large anti-trafficking organization that works with women coming out of recovery, and it's just been growing more and more. Originally, when I got into ministry, thought I was going to be doing outreach ministry, and that's really what I set the ministry up to be. And then ran into some people that were trafficked and that were really close to our family. One of them was my neighbor. Another one was a coworker. And so we decided to launch one of the first safe houses in our area, and thought the anti-trafficking piece of what we did was going to be like just a percentage of the larger ministry. So we were kind of looking at it like, we have our church, and this is going to be our youth ministry. It's not the main thing, but it's definitely a part of what we want to be able to do. So that was kind of our mindset. However, when we opened up the safe house, immediately everything changed. It was just full on, one, warfare, two, just shock of how much of this is actually going on in the country, how much the need is. We're kind of like, what did we just stumble upon?
Like how much trafficking is going on in the country.
Just felt like we opened Pandora's box. And then also just realizing, man, a lot of these women have been through so much trauma. Just having like a safe house with some host parents, this isn't what they need. They need a recovery program with Jesus intertwined, and counseling and case management, and they need to get off drugs. And there's just so much more that in our head we were thinking, oh, if we find somebody, we'll get them in a house with some loving host parents and everything will be better. So that's what I mean by it was just like we just opened Pandora's box, and we thought that we were going to help 3 to 5 women, and we had 21 women go through our house in 9 months. Right. So all of a sudden you're going, hey, this can't be a side thing. This might be the thing that the Lord's calling us to. So um, things just kind of kept growing, and we started seeing more need, and eventually about 3 years ago decided, hey, we need to probably shut down everything that isn't trafficking related and just focus on being the best anti-trafficking ministry that we can. And in that started really praying and believing, okay, if that was going to happen, what would we need to build? And the first thing we were processing was, well, we're going to need probably like an emergency center, which we would call like the Freedom Center, to be able to do emergency stabilization care. So if somebody gets off the street, they have a place to go immediately, help them walk through the detox process, help them just get stable before we move them to like a recovery ranch to go through a program, and then transitional living and job skills training. So the first thought was, well, we're going to need a center that can be open 24/7. We'd love it to be on a bus line. We'd love it to be somewhat close, within 15 to 20 minutes to the airport, because we're getting moved from all over the country. So a lot of things that were on our list, and then our local strip club shut down.
Hey, I'm Billy Hallowell, and I have something to tell you. This is really, really important. It's about Christian Solidarity International, which is an organization that I absolutely love. Now, as hard as it might be for us to comprehend here in America, but there are people in other parts of the world, all over the world, whose very lives are being threatened simply because they believe in Jesus. In fact, people are being enslaved, very literally, for their faith. Some of these people have been detained for 25 or even 30 years. Now, if you've been listening to me for any period of time, you know that I am passionate about the work that Christian Solidarity International does. This is work to help the persecuted church all over the world. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are persecuted and enslaved in the Middle East alone. The headlines right now are obviously very focused on the Middle East, and so that's why I want to talk about this today. Now, together we can very literally, and this is amazing, buy their freedom and save the lives of some precious brothers and sisters in Christ right now. We can do that right now, giving them the joy and the hope that we celebrate here in America so freely. For only $250, you can provide life-saving aid. You can actually buy a believer's freedom and provide them with what they need: food, a goat, other necessary goods for their very survival. Now, these are brothers and sisters in Christ, enslaved and fearing for their lives. They need us. Now, let's get back to the $250. Maybe you can give more. Maybe you can give even a portion, but every single gift helps. You can actually go right now to www.csi-usa.org, and you can do what you can right there to help. You'll see my picture when you scroll down. Click on that where it says give, and give whatever you can. That's www.csi-usa.org. Thank you so much.
And somebody called me and said, "Hey, do you guys you should consider purchasing the strip club," and, kind of tongue in cheek. And I'm sitting there with my wife, I don't know, probably like watching a Ruslan or something on YouTube or something. And we're sitting there talking, and all of a sudden, it just hit me. I was like, you know what, God, maybe you're crazy enough that you would turn a strip club that was known for objectifying women and turn it into a center that would be known nationally for helping women come out of trafficking. Like, maybe
This is wild. It's wild. I mean, anyway, continue.
Yeah, it is. So I was like, you might be crazy enough to do this. And I just kind of gave my wife the look, and I've given her that look multiple times with, just the ideas of being an entrepreneur. And she just kind of
Does
looked
she
at me
get terrified by that look? Is she kind of like, oh no? Or is she like, I'm on board?
I mean, we've been married for over a decade. So now she's learned, like, I need to, just because he's having an idea doesn't mean he's going to run with it. He just needs to, like, go look into all the details, get it off his chest. So she goes, just go do it. Like, I don't want to hear about, 3 months later that, what if, and she goes, fine. Honestly, like, I think God's in this. And for me, that was a huge deal to have my wife say that. So I just went down there the next day, called, and the building was going up for sale again. Somebody had put it under contract. And he goes, but I love what you do. I've heard of you guys. I'll sneak you in at, I don't know, I think it was like 3:00. And so 2:00 rolls around. My anti-trafficking director, who's a survivor, and a survivor friend of mine, just happened to show up. And I go, do you guys want to go down to the strip club and see if maybe this is the Freedom Center that we've been praying for? And both of them were like, yes. And the survivor that I was with used to strip there.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I was like, okay. Because honestly, I don't want to have a crazy idea and then, ultimately they're the ones that have to live with the choices of leadership. Like, if I go buy a facility that's going to trigger everybody, I kind of wanted to know from their perspective. So we show up, walk in. It's gloomy. The walls are black. There's no windows. It's red lights and nude women, posters all over the place. You just feel the spirit of darkness when you walk in there. A lot of drug addiction, a lot of things that had gone through there. Later on, we'd hear stories of people who'd been stabbed, people had died in the building. Like, it was pretty intense. Once you buy it, everybody starts coming to you with the stories. So I go and talk to the guy, and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm serious. I'm thinking about this. I'm going to wait to hear from the ladies. They went and did a tour. They came back and they were like, this is it. This is our building. And they go, this is what God did in our life. He took something that was used for something that we are not really proud of, and, gave us a new meaning and changed us from the inside out. And I think that we should turn this from a place of darkness into a place of light. So I told the guy, I said, hey, listen, if something falls through, call me. And 2 or 3 weeks later, it fell through. And I started the process of looking into it, trying to figure out how to purchase it, and started talking to my city council members about it, because I knew they didn't want it to be reopened as a club, because there's a rule legally that if the club sat vacant for a year, the license would expire and they could no longer use it as a strip club. And so I knew the city had, communicated they didn't want it to be reopened. And they had some funding. So I went and talked with them and said, hey, what if you guys put $1 million into an account to fight trafficking, and we just used it to purchase the club and turn it into a freedom center? And they all seemed pretty excited about the idea and started voting and started shifting the money into an account. And then I got voted to come into city council to present. And about 4 days before I was supposed to go present for the money, to ask for the money to buy the building, we had a conversation with the city manager, and he just kind of sat down with me and said, "Hey, we unfortunately, just the way that the the laws are written, especially under the Biden administration, because I talked to my city councilwoman, Kathy McMorris Rogers, about this later, and she just said, "Hey, this is the way that the federal laws were written. They really didn't want to give money to the faith-based organizations," is what she told me. So they sat me down and said, "Hey, we're going to have to do a request for proposal, and even if you get the money, hold on a second, I need to turn this off. Even if you were to get the money, uh, there would be three stipulations. One, the first one is you have to use the money for what you agree to in the grant, which is a no-brainer. Didn't have a problem with that. The second one was they put a 15-year restriction on the deed, and I didn't really want to have the government over like having a restriction on our building. And then the third thing, which was the big one, was it said that all funding must be used for secular use only. And because I was going to ask for them to pay off the building, that would mean that the entire building would have to be used for secular use only. And so I turned down the $1 million opportunity a few days before I was supposed to present. And it was really hard. I'm not going to lie to you. It was challenging. There was a little irritation and anger and frustration, not so much with the city council because I knew they wanted to do it. Just in general, it's just frustrating that the money's
Well, it's
there.
$1 million. It's $1 million that you need to run the center.
And we're right there. Right there, could pay the whole thing off, and they want to, but because we love Jesus, we can't do it. Or I could take Jesus out of our ministry, or say that I would be okay with using the building for secular use only, which we're not okay with doing because that's the only thing that truly heals people coming out of this horrendous situation that they're in. And so I told them that I wish they could that they should consider giving the money to law enforcement, and they did. And then the law enforcement shut down 18 massage parlors that were trafficking people in our area with the money. And then, by the grace of God, we just got the funding that came in last week and just paid the building off yesterday before I'm talking to you. So now we own the building outright and have no restrictions on it and don't have to use it for secular use only. And they're going to be opening up the first Freedom Center in the United States.
Where's this at, by the way?
It's in Spokane, Washington. It's right on the border of Washington, Idaho.
Okay.
It's a great location for us. It's up in the Pacific Northwest, away from, a lot of the country. And so if a woman gets trafficked, she can come up into a beautiful part of the country and, lots of lakes and trees. And we're right on the border of Idaho. So we kind of, we'll eventually put our recovery ranch on the Idaho side of the border and use the Washington side for more of the emergency services.
That's awesome, though. Congrats. There's a lot of those recovery centers that are like really big where I live down here, especially the Dr. Filson's, all his people are the one that I hear about me. It's not
Out in
trafficking,
Tennessee.
but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this
just
is
had a
like
buddy of mine that was on Dr. Phil's show talking about they train law enforcement on how to do stings. Because a lot of times when you think of trafficking, you think of the border, you think of kids, you think of kidnapping. And what you don't necessarily think of is a lot of what we see, which is a lot of adults, women being trafficked, and a lot of youth being trafficked by their own community. And it's not necessarily kidnapping; it's grooming into commercial sex work.
Yeah.
even parents doing it to parents doing it to their children. I mean, some of the stories, and I'm sure you've heard the most heartbreaking stories I've heard are like family members doing it to their own nieces, nephews, kids. It's like unbelievable. I guess the question I have, just because I don't know. I mean, I've covered these issues. I know a little bit about it, but not a lot. Like how bad this is a problem you assume is like happening in Russia and other countries, right? But
Yeah.
yet it's happening here. How bad is it? How big is it?
I mean, the reality is it's the fastest growing criminal industry in the world. It's past um, drug sales now. And um, it's,
Why? Like why is it?
well, I
What
think,
makes it so easy for it to grow, I guess?
yeah, I think the reality of that, I'm going to break this down, and it's good that I'm talking to you guys because you're Christians. Um, the more that I think about this, well, there's two things. So, one, if you look at what the devil's always done, he's always used sex and blood to try to
Mm-hmm.
get power.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look through the book of Kings, you're going to see something familiar. You're going to see that societies were basically judged on whether they took down the high places. So it's going to say this king did what was right in the eyes of the Lord because he took down the high places, and this king didn't do what was right in the eyes of the Lord because he didn't take down the high places. So when you go and look at what those high places are, those are places that they worship like Baal and Asherah and stuff like that, and they would perform child sacrifices and commit and have orgies. And so
Mm-hmm.
right there you have sex and you have blood. So I want to fast forward and I want to look at the United States today. What do we worship? Like if you really think
Art.
about it,
Yeah.
I want
I
you
have
to
a lot of
think,
answers.
you know what I mean? But those two things are very involved. We idolize sexuality, and we abort what almost a million babies a year, and that the devil and the enemy is completely behind that. And so when you look at a seventh grade kid or even younger now, when you are a young guy, you are basically groomed by society to start looking at women as objects instead of humans. They're trying to get you to be addicted to pornography. I definitely started to get addicted to pornography when I was 10 or 11. That does something to you. It changes your mind. It warps you. You start looking at women as objects and not as humans. And then the second thing is it's almost like as soon as a girl hits a junior high hallway, she's basically told by culture the most important thing about her is her sexuality and what she can give a man sexually. And then guys are basically taught like your popularity is going to be based on your body count. So when you have an entire culture that's addicted to pornography, that looks at women as objects, you're eventually going to have people selling people. So the two answers that I've been able to come up with is that obviously abortion and sex trafficking are the end of the conveyor belt of a nation that's turned away from God. Um, and then you have an enemy that's actively fighting to do this stuff. And so you have the darker you get, the more you start getting into like satanic ritual abuse, you're going to see sex trafficking. And it's just a part and child sacrifice, and it's just a part of it. And I had no idea about this
Well,
until
a lot of people say this isn't true.
probably
Right? Like
10
there's
years
and
ago.
we were talking about this, you and I at a conference we were at recently. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, those things don't happen." Right? This has been like an ongoing thing. That's not real. There's no such thing as, satanic ritual abuse, or that doesn't happen today anymore. Like you hear this a lot, and yet you're telling me you work with people and you know people who have
Yeah,
been victims of this.
yeah. You guys want me to tell you how I found out for the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so my mom and dad they got in a really bad car accident 5 months after they got married, and this was in the 70s. And my mom was a head cheerleader. My dad was like, kind of like a boxer and was going to Bible college. And so my mom always kind of had a crush on his little brothers. They're my uncles, and they were kind of like the basketball players and the football players. And then the older brother showed up, and she was like, I kind of liking this guy. So they start to date, and wait 3 years to get married, to hook up, do everything the right way that we would consider in the Christian world to like do it the right way, wait till marriage, then get married. 5 months after they get married, horrible car accident. My mom's immediately a quadriplegic. They
Mm.
spend the next few years in and out of rehab, and she never walks again. So my mom's dream was never to really be a boss babe. That's not really how she is. Her dream was always to be a mom. And so now she's sitting in this situation going, I don't know if I can be a mom, or if I physically can, then I don't know if it's going to be too hard on me. But eventually, they just decide no matter what, we're going to serve the Lord. And we have every reason to be angry. We're not going to be, and we're going to serve Jesus. And they end up having me. And not only that, my mom ends up kind of being like a mom to the neighborhood. She was always like a place that kids would come over and hang out. The pantry was always full. Um, Literally, I remember just being out playing, riding bikes and doing stuff. And there was always, hey, we're hungry. Let's go to Caleb's. That was just the deal. So because of that, we would have people that would come over. And I remember this one girl would come over to our house, and me and my brother, after they had me, they had my little brother. And so two little rambunctious boys with a father that loves to box and ride Harleys and wrestle. And my dad is like, Chuck Norris wishes he was my dad. So this girl comes over, the neighbor girl, and sometimes just to like probably get us to like calm down and hang out, like she'd be like, hey, let's watch a movie. You know what I mean? So my memories of this girl were kind of coming over, and we'd hang out and we'd watch a movie. Well, one day we decided to go walk through the woods with my dad to her house to go get a movie. And I will never forget this. There's just a couple things in everybody's life when they're kids that you kind of vaguely remember, right? Like for some weird reason, I remember the first time I got an ice cream from the ice cream guy. I remember it was like the Ninja Turtle ice cream. The purple guy with the gumdrop eyeballs. And you have those weird little random memories. Well, this is one of those random memories. And I think the reason it stuck in my spirit was because it was very weird. I walked into the house with her, and her brother, we went into the basement, and there was a TV at the far end of the downstairs, one of the big tube TVs, because this is like early 90s. And all the VHS tapes, the Disney movies are up there. So he turns around and goes, what are you doing with that kid? Get him out of here. And I think my brother's with me, and he said, get those kids out of here. And she goes, it's okay. Mom and dad aren't here, and their dad is outside. I'm just getting a movie, and we're going back to their house. Now, when you're 5 or 6 years old and you walk into somebody's house, I'd never had somebody say, get those kids out of here before. You're always usually welcome. They're always happy to see you. So that was very strange for me. It never really made sense until 20 years later. My father went on a 40-day fast out in the woods with nothing but water. And he was really believing that my mom would get healed. But you don't get to twist God's arm in a fast. But what does happen is you basically your flesh dies, and you're able to hear the Lord very clearly. And so in that moment of fasting, my dad heard the Lord tell him very clearly that he needed to go start a church service at the homeless shelter in town that he was working at. But he wanted the ministry needed not just to be for men, although it was a men's shelter. He needed to open it up for women and men, for like a recovery church. And so my father did that. And because of his obedience is why I'm sitting here. Because he obeyed the Lord, 20 years after I never saw that girl again when we moved houses, she comes back into our life, and she shows up to that church service. And what had happened was she had been trafficked from the age of 6 by her parents. And she had been through so much abuse and so much pain and so much trauma. She ended up way up north, living with some pastor friends in a cabin, all sorts of surgeries from the abuse. And for some reason, when she was telling this pastor her story, my dad's name kind of came to this guy's spirit, and said, I would like to introduce you to my friend Randy, because she started talking about some satanic ritual abuse stuff that she had been through. And they knew my father had dealt with people in the street his whole life, working at a homeless shelter. She goes, oh, I know Randy. Well, obviously, when a traffic victim tells tells you that they know somebody, that usually raises a red flag. So the pastor immediately is like, "Oh dear God, please tell me, Randy's not involved in this stuff," because she had just told him all these people that had abused her. And she starts laughing. He says, "No, no, no. Randy's awesome. Randy's amazing. He was my neighbor growing up, and I would always go over to their house because it was the only safe place in the neighborhood." So she comes down. My dad obviously remembers her. She tells him her story. It breaks his heart, like you can only imagine. Um, we also had found out that there was a bunch of bodies that were found over kind of by her house. The serial killer was dumping bodies over there. Years later, they found all the bodies about that time that we were living there. And so all of a sudden, stuff starts making sense. Her brother had been murdered also by this point. And I go and meet with her, and she tells me her story. And I'll never forget, because this is the thing she told me. She says, "I remember I was about 6 and I went to a house, and there was we went into the basement, and there was a concrete wall with a crack down the middle of it. And there's like a little bit of water dripping and stuff like that. And she said there was a bunch of kids my age that were naked against the wall. And my mom made me go down there. My mom drove me to this place, made me take my clothes off, made me get up against a wall. And then these grown men would come out and they'd pick us and they'd take us in the back room, and they would abuse us over and over and over again." And she said, "I remember screaming and crying in pain and begging my mom to make it stop. And my mom just told me, 'Shut up, you're a girl. This is what you do.'" And so that was her childhood. And then what came out later is that her mother was a witch, and it was part of the satanic rituals that they would go and abuse these kids. She told me of child sacrifices, all these things that she had seen growing up. First time I had ever heard of this. And I had been in ministry for a while. My family had been in ministry, but never heard of it. So this is where it gets crazy. So then I go back to my ministry at the time. I was running a youth center, and I talked to my staff about it because it's on my heart, and us in ministry, a lot of times you'll have like a weekly staff meeting and you have prayer time. And so we would do that on Wednesdays. And they asked me what was going on, and I told them the story. Well, one of the staff people that I'm working with starts crying, and she starts telling me her story. She says, "My dad was in the satanic occult, and he would do the same thing, and he would sell me to his prison guard friends."
Oh
She said, "That's why when your father shows up to see you at the office, I always walk into the other room, because he reminds me of the types of guys that would work at a prison, because he works out, rides a Harley, all these types of things." So after about a month of, my dad coming to see me, um, she realizes he's safe, because anybody that meets my father, he's just awesome. And I remember it took her about 10 to 15 minutes to walk 10 to 15 feet across the room just to give my father a hug, because she was so scared of him. I mean, just trembling in fear. And so for me to see somebody afraid of my hero as a grown woman, to deal with that kind of trauma, somebody I care about, to be so afraid of my dad when he's just a loving father, so scared to just get a hug. I mean, the amount of, like, I'm talking like shaking and trembling in fear every step. And it would take her like another 30 seconds to take another step just to get to my dad to get a hug. That will be embedded in my mind for the rest of my life, guys. And so after that happened, as soon as he gave her a hug, she just started screaming, and a demon came out of her. And she just went limp and was free, but she still had a lot of trauma. And actually, even doing that was very traumatizing for her. But we weren't in trauma informed care. We didn't understand. We were just thinking she needs a father's hug, right? Now, obviously, we have female staff, and we have a whole team and all this kind of stuff. We wouldn't do it that way. But back then, we weren't in this world. We were just people that were, normal guys trying to do ministry. And this was literally the first time that I had, it's not the first time I'd seen deliverance, but it was just a lot to process. And so, that's kind of how we got into it, boys. So I, after that, went and
A
talked with my
lot.
dad, and he retired from the mission after 30 years, and we started the ministry together. Opened up a safe house, thinking if we run into somebody in the situation, because those girls were pretty high functioning adults and they had
Hmm.
jobs. So we thought, oh, if we could just provide them a good place to live with some loving house parents, we'd be good. And so that was the thought process. And instead, what we found was a lot of women coming literally off the street, still addicted to drugs, that needed a place to go. And that's kind of how we get to where we're at today.
So, real, all it took was a hug from your dad for that girl to be delivered.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, there's a lot more there. So,
I'm
uh,
about to say because that just reminds me of
yeah,
the Paul when he done that to that slave woman.
yeah,
Oh, he was so
You know,
annoyed. Paul was so annoyed by that girl.
and he was just like, yeah. But it was just when you said that, I was like, God, man, the power. That's
yeah. Well, there's a
real.
mix of a hug and in the name of Jesus, get out of her. My
Oh,
dad he
okay, okay.
went through deliverance for a while,
Well, cool
uh,
though.
but what we
Can I
and
ask
then
you? Can I
later
ask you
on
something really
we'd
quick?
find out too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Later on, we'd find
Yeah.
out too that she, not necessarily with her, but with a lot of the women that we would help later on that came out of satanic ritual abuse, which I have staff now that have come out of satanic ritual abuse that work on our staff. A lot of them have been through so much trauma that they actually are basically the trauma is trying to split their personality to give them parts. And so a lot of them have multiple personality disorder and different parts. And what we're seeing is God's actually healing those parts and bringing people fully together. So there's definitely more to it than just like a typical deliverance.
Right.
But it's still, when you see that, it's just incredible to see just the trauma, like, of somebody
Yeah.
dealing with that, just to get a hug from somebody.
Yeah.
Well,
What were you
and
gonna
what
ask, Dylan?
I was gonna ask about, as you're, because I'm talking to more people who have been victims of this or who are working with victims, and they will often talk about the fact that they see multiple demons sometimes in a person, or many, many when they've been trafficked because of the trauma. So I was kind of curious about that. When you talk about, obviously some people have multiple personality disorder just naturally, but then there's the spiritual element of that too. Are you seeing some of that with these people as they're as these women are sort of coming out of this, that it's not just one spiritual issue you're dealing with, that there could be multiple?
Oh yeah, brother, it's complex trauma. It's very complex. So you're going to be dealing with, and I don't want to generalize. I mean, I'm kind of generalizing here. Everybody has their own story, so I definitely don't want it to come across like this is just a typical story. But usually there's, in work, I think we worked with 400 women last year, so you start seeing some patterns.
Wow.
It's complex trauma. So you're going to have, if you had somebody come to you and let's say they were just dealing with uh, mental health, that's a lot. Okay. But if you got someone that's dealing with mental health, also, you know, got demonic stuff they're dealing with, and they're dealing with addiction, and they've been raped 5 to 10 times a day, and they have multiple personality disorder, and they're on medication. This is typically what we're dealing with in one individual.
And that's a field day for the devil. I mean, to try to manipulate all those, weak points in a person that, they're not the person's fault. These are things that have happened as a result of that trauma. But man,
Yeah.
I don't know,
But
Dalton, if I have so many things, but
Jesus
I
is
can't. Yeah.
great, brother. And so we're seeing him heal people. We're seeing people get set free.
Wow.
I think the coolest part, and this almost makes me tear up, is that we've got women on our staff now that are free,
Mm.
that came out of this stuff, and they're free, and they know how to fight this stuff. And
Yeah.
they came out of the satanic ritual abuse, so they understand how these guys play these games and do these things, and they're free. And when these women come in, they see women that are free, that have families, that have careers. It gives them hope. Um, and then we're just seeing Jesus do miraculous things all the time, and watching people come in one way and leave a different way.
Hmm.
And it's just so incredible to be a part of.
It is really awesome.
Man,
But it's
I'm
the
really
darkest stuff I've ever been a part of, guys. I'm
Yeah,
not getting
right.
weird. Like it's not.
it's
I mean,
hard.
this isn't. It's my dad worked at a homeless shelter for 30 years. We saw dark stuff. We'd seen people have to go through deliverance. We saw people coming into the shelter demonized and stuff like that. It wasn't abnormal to see that or to be around that. But this is on a whole another level. I mean, when
What
you've
were you
got
gonna say, Dalton? Because you were just gonna say something about
crazy,
yourself or how you're processing it. Maybe I don't know. You were gonna say something.
No, I'm just saying it's something that I haven't like because I guess where I live, um, I know probably like Nashville and that kind of area is probably pretty bad, but where I'm at, it's a small town, like I don't ever think of this being the issue here. Where I'm from is literally called, if you look up an Urban Dictionary, it's called Dope City. So I just see that stuff all the time, and so it's just like, and I know this stuff is coming up more often. Like I see, Tebow talking about it all the time. Then now I'm hearing your story. It's just something like for, I guess, and then there's movies about it, but I've never put any more like other than kind of what I just see real quick into like I never put much more thought into it because I just don't. It's just not a big thing like right in my immediate location. So, but now it's
yeah.
if there's any way I can support that, man. Like there very well could be something really hidden where I'm at. I just don't know it, but
I'm sure
Yeah.
there is.
um,
That's this
yeah,
issue is like the hidden horror that has been going on. I mean, some of the figures I've seen is like 300,000 people, Americans, are apparently victims of this. I don't know how accurate that is. You would know, Caleb, but
Yeah, I see
that's
the same
insane.
number. Yeah, and then you see number. I mean, I've read stuff where like 50% of sex trafficking is happening in North America. They include Canada and Greenland in that statistic. I've seen statistics of 1 in 3 women are abused by the time they're 18. 1 in 5 boys are abused by the time they're 18. I think the hard part is everybody's doing their best to try and get statistics. Um, but it's like asking how many drug dealers are in your community. They're not all filling out paperwork saying, yeah, I'm
yeah,
selling drugs or I'm
yeah.
a trafficker. And so they're doing the best they can. There's some great people that are out there trying to put some stuff together to get statistics, but what we can say is it's happening everywhere and it's happening all the time, and it's probably happening in a city near you.
Hmm.
Man.
Um,
We're rounding out to the to the end. I'm like, I could talk to you for like 2 hours. But right now, so you've raised this money, you're about to, you own this building, you're diving into, I mean, you said 400 women you guys served last year. How many women will you serve this year coming up, you think?
it just kind of depends, man. It wouldn't surprise me if we do that again or we cross that over. I know with the Freedom Center, we'll have the capacity to probably help 1,000 people a year. And that is in different capacity. So you got people that are calling in, they're wanting help, they're all sorts of stuff. But what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to better help those 412 women that we helped. And we want to be able to offer outpatient and inpatient. But with the inpatient, we want to be set up to be able to take somebody literally from coming in, just been trafficked, high on fentanyl, all the way to a job. And that's the vision and the goal that we have. And the first step of that is to get the Freedom Center done. We've raised $2.2 million, and we have $1.6 million that we need to raise to finish it and open the doors. But we now have it fully demoed and the building completely paid off. And so the next part now is to start raising the money to actually do the remodel and get this thing done.
How can people help? Like, how, if people are listening to this, watching this right now, what can they do to help you guys out?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is share what we're doing, get the word out. And then if you feel led by the Holy Spirit to give or to be a part of this or kind of be an ambassador, please just go onto my Instagram and DM me the word impact. And we'll try and set up a Zoom meeting to talk with you guys. I mean, ultimately, this can all get done if we just get get this in front of the right people. We can get it fully funded and get it done.
Mm,
And um, that's what we're praying and believing for right now.
awesome.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll share it. We'll share it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we'll have to have you back too, like as the
Yeah.
center's opening, as things are happening. And there's so much more to talk about on this. I think that we probably didn't even get to, but I think this is a good introduction for people. I think the satanic ritual abuse piece, we should definitely go even deeper on that. There's so many things that are happening that I think we don't see. And honestly, a lot of people out there who, and I don't want to make people feel convicted or awful right now, but pornography, all of these things that people are consuming that are just fueling the chaos in this country that you talked about, and that are just, really it's an abuse of people that so many people, so many of us, right, are participating in or have participated in. It's pretty horrific. And I don't know, Caleb, I'll give you like a final word on it, but we need to wake up and we need to be the church and we need to snap out of it and not participate in anything that would lead to what these women are facing.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's what this is about, man. I mean, being a Christian is about taking light into dark places. And like you said, if we as men are addicted to porn and we're fueling the industry, then we need to stop. We got to decrease demand. The reason people are selling people is because there's money in it, and you got a whole generation and a whole nation that's addicted to sex and glorifying OnlyFans and all the things. And a lot of us have got wrapped up into it just as much as the next guy because we're a part of culture. And so when we get saved, we got to be set apart. It's why Paul talks about being set apart, not just in your faith and speech and conduct, but in purity. And I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think it's something that needs to shift and change. And I'm by no means a satanic ritual abuse expert, and by no means is all the women that we work with coming out of satanic ritual abuse. But it does happen. We do see it, and we have staff on our team that have come out of it, and it is real. But of course, it's real because there's an enemy. Like, of course, there's people out there worshiping him, And if you just read your Bible, you see it all throughout the Bible. Like, why would we ever think that it would just end? You know, really behind the curtain of all this evil is him.
Hmm.
And some of these poor women and boys have had a first class ticket to seeing it firsthand. And most of them don't come out and talk about it because people think they're crazy. And I'm sick of it. I have heard their stories, I've heard their tears, I've sat down with them enough to know this stuff's really happening. And I would love to just be able to give them an opportunity to tell their story and really just have somebody believe them. But what they've been through is so traumatizing, so extreme that people um, oftentimes make them feel like it's not real, and I'm glad that you guys' eyes are kind of open to it. um, but I mean, just read your Bible.
Hmm.
It's not it's not it's not that hard to see. I mean, look at what they would do with. There's always been child sacrifice. There's always
Hmm.
been this stuff. It's
Yeah.
not that hard to really believe that it continues, and some of this stuff's just out in the open, man. I mean, I was listening to one YouTube show, and the guy was like a high wizard in the satanic cult, and he was performing like child sacrifices. He was just out loud, openly talking about it on YouTube, and he got saved. And I hit him up and had a full hour-long conversation with him. I mean, it's not like they're even hiding it anymore. You could get some of those guys on the show, and they would be like, "Here's what we were doing," and
Yeah.
what we do. It's not like. But I just think the Lord's wanting to expose it. I think this stuff's always been happening, and He's just shining a light on it. It's not like sex trafficking just started last week. This stuff's been going on for a long time, um, but it's been hidden, and people have just been like, "Oh well, that girl is just a prostitute, or she's choosing this," and they don't realize that maybe she's been forced, frauded, or coerced into this life of sex work. And if she doesn't perform and if she doesn't bring home X amount of dollars, then she's beaten or not being able to see her kids or, XYZ. And so now when you see somebody on OnlyFans, or you see, somebody that's in the porn industry, or you see somebody that's being prostituted, my hope would be that people would look at them and go, is she choosing to do this or is she being forced to do this? You know, because growing up, it wasn't even a thought that went through my head. I'm just being honest. Like, I never thought of these women as being victims of something. I just thought this was their life choices. And now, 10 years into this, I'm like, man, it breaks your heart.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Caleb. We'll have you back again. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
All right, boys. Appreciate you.